Greetings, everyone. Happy Monday, March 31st. Wow, this year's going by so fast. It's flying. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey. Basketball heavy episode today. We don't just talk football around here, though it feels like we haven't talked football really in a couple months, but we will be heavy on Michigan basketball in this episode. Season comes to an end over the weekend in Atlanta. They lose Friday night 78-65 to top overall seed Auburn, who wound up winning the region and will be in the Final Four this weekend. We were all there, of course. A bitter end to the season, but it was one of those things where it had been such a good year where you ride it to the very end. You're with them to the end of the line, and three of us and Michigan fans were.
It was fun, guys. Atlanta was cool. It was great being there with you guys. And nice town, right? It was a nice walk through Centennial Park to the arena every day, and you hoped for a better fate. And you kind of sensed that Dusty May did too. He said, "I felt we could get to that final weekend, but it would have taken some doing, and you would have had to go through Auburn and Michigan State." Frankly, I thought Ole Miss was a better team than Michigan State. I thought Michigan State turned it on at the end, but that was the seventh or sixth best team in the SEC, guys, giving Michigan State all they could handle. So you had a sense that if Auburn really stepped it up and brought their A game like they did in the last 12 minutes of that Michigan game, that it was going to be tough for Michigan State. But what a year. If you had told me at the end of last season, after Michigan won 8 games, that they were going to hang a banner, they were going to make it to the Sweet 16, and Dusty May was going to be your head coach, I would have signed up for that every day and twice on Sunday, as Dusty May likes to say. It was so much fun to see this team, and it felt like they'd been together for a long time, guys. There are some teams where, okay, you throw them together, and it's just like, okay. And I'll give an example. Last year's team kind of felt like that. Olivier Kamwa and guys like that, and just like didn't feel right. This team felt like it had been together for a long time, and it was so much fun to watch them cover. So lots of bright days ahead here for Michigan basketball, fellas, because this thing is only going to get better. Now it's going to come down to what they do in the transfer portal, and the prices keep going up. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that, but it's going to be Dusty May in the fold here and putting things together. I feel really confident about the future.
Yeah, it's hard to rebuild every year. Dusty May said it'll be extremely difficult, but we'll see how they do in the portal after doing a great job last season. But yeah, I mean, the first half was weird, and then you felt like you should have been up at halftime. You were down 1, and it felt like in the second half when you were up 9, the path to victory there in hindsight was probably capitalizing on a bunch of Auburn mistakes in the first half. And if you were up 18 at that point, which was actually kind of possible with how that game played out, maybe you would have got more cushion. Auburn would have played a little bit tighter, but they turned it on and they hit a bunch of tough shots, and Michigan had no real answer. And Michigan didn't really have great offensive production all night. Danny Wolf was really good, but you didn't get anything out of your guards. Auburn, their perimeter defense was incredible. So credit to them, and they're headed to the Final Four, and Michigan is now in a spot where they built a good foundation in year 1 under Dusty May. They had an incredible season. They'll hang a banner, something for these guys to hang their hats on for the rest of their lives. They chased something eternal, and they achieved it. And now the work begins for year 2. But yeah, it's what a run. It's kind of weird. It's like, all right, where do I go this weekend? It was Indy, Denver, Atlanta. Now I'm staying home. It's disappointing, but yeah, I guess we'll be watching the Final Four from the couch.
Yeah, you kind of sit there watching those games on Sunday. It's namely the Auburn-Michigan State game, and you're like, we were in this building like less than 48 hours to go. It's kind of surreal.
Yeah.
But great year nonetheless. I think when you look at this NCAA tournament in general, there's a lot of talk, a lot of narratives about, oh, Cinderella's dead and the transfer portal NIL has changed everything. And maybe it has. I'm sure it has. But, when you look at this field in general, these last 4 teams, I believe, and I'll pardon my take for this. I think I heard this on Monday. The 4 teams that'll play in the Final Four are 4 of the top 10 teams ever in the Ken Pom era, which goes back to 1997, I think. So it just kind of shows you how good those teams are that'll play in this final weekend relative to their peers. So, feather in their cap too. You saw it at the end of the Michigan game, and you saw it to start the Michigan State Auburn game, where teams like Auburn, they just have that different gear, and they sort of picked up right where they left off. So credit to them, shout out to them, good, passionate fans. That was a road game on Friday night, and that was one of the loudest college basketball environments I've ever been in, which is kind of crazy for what is supposedly a neutral site NCAA tournament game. So we will talk about the season at large. We'll look ahead to the transfer portal a little bit, and we'll take some questions towards the end of our show. But we are brought to you today by our friends over at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. You're gearing up. Michigan's not just a basketball school or a football school or a hockey school. They've got a lot over there at homefieldapparel.com, no matter what your interests are, no matter what type of weather it is. We're talking hoodies, t-shirts, hats, joggers, you name it. It's all there over at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. And we've been singing their praises for years to this point. So support some good folks down there in Indianapolis, the heart of Big Ten country. And they have their fingers on the pulse of college fans and Michigan fans when it comes to the gear that's on their site. So use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. Well, I think a place to start would be, now that the season is over, I don't know that we need to go back and discuss the Auburn game at length or maybe even the NCAA tournament. Clayton, you sort of hit on it to a certain extent, or maybe it was Chris, whoever it was. Talk about the foundation. And that's my biggest question here as we start this show on a Monday is, what was the foundation that was set this year? Now, I think we've talked about how Dusty May, clearly one of the best coaches in America. You're going to be in the mix here moving forward as long as he's there. And, you think it's going to be a long time for that. Won't be a roster overhaul the extent of what last year's was. But I think that's the biggest thing is how, you sort of outkicked your coverage this year. And now come next year, it's not going to be just sunshine if you win an NCAA tournament game, win two NCAA tournament games. This is the question now is how do you build off this and move forward? And college basketball, it's a little different than football. There's parity year in and year out, and development's not always linear. But how does Dusty and his staff kind of take the baton from this year, which was a great year, a year better than any of us could have imagined, maybe better than some of those guys imagined, and build from that?
Yeah, first of all, you've got to rebuild, and you're not going to have your bigs most likely. He did say Danny Wolf has a lot of things to consider, but a week before that, he said he's very likely going to the NBA. I think Danny will look at it, and he's going to get his evaluation per people that we've spoken with and what the NBA says about him, and then make his decision. I think if he's a first round pick, he's got to go. I'll say that about anybody this day and age. So, but I think NIL starts with making him an offer, right? You're looking at the portal for all these big guys, and teams are breaking the bank for them now. It's unbelievable. It's going to be tougher than it was last year. Number one of the best big men in the country came with you from FAU, so they probably got him at a discount. The other guy was his whole family was Michigan grads, Danny Wolf, and came from Yale and was better than I think anybody expected. So now when it comes to big men, the price has gone up. I guess I wrote it in a column today. I guess call it inflation. So it is. In fact, just got word that Alexa Dimitrievich is probably going to stick with Creighton too, based on people that we're speaking with. So when you've got a team like Creighton paying for an Owen Freeman, and some said 2 million over 2 years, and now Alexa, man, it just goes to show you how much those guys are going for. So, going to be fascinating. But I trust Dusty May, right? I trust him to cast a wide net and to find guys that fit his program. There is a budget. They aren't going to get into bidding wars for all these guys. And everybody's like, well, you got to do this, you got to do that. I don't think they have to do anything, but I do think that there's a reason, right, that the four best teams in the tournament are the ones with the most talent. That's just the way it works. So that's something that he's going to have to take into account going forward. There's a reason the Big Ten has won one NCAA tournament in the last 25 years, or and that was Michigan State in 2000. So going to be fascinating to see what he does. But I trust him, and I just think it's going to be a little bit harder this year, guys. So it sounds like Magoon Guath is leaning towards Kentucky now after a really nice Zoom with them, a big man out of San Diego State transfer. So lots to watch. But again, you can't build teams in the traditional sense. So, but Dusty May, I think, has an idea of what he wants to do.
I think the foundation was proof of concept in a lot of ways. Just the way that they were able to build this thing on the fly with, I think, 9 scholarship newcomer players, some guys they had connections with like Vlad Golden and Reuben Jones, who had played against FAU, Dusty May's teams there at Florida Atlantic 7 different times during his time at North Texas. Trey Donaldson, there were some connections going back to high school with the staff, and on and on. Sam Walters, same thing out of Florida. Combining that with that and some guys that didn't have the connections, a couple freshmen they brought in, including one in LJ Kaysen, who is very, very good. And it speaks to the talent evaluation of Dusty May and his staff, the character evaluation of Dusty May and his staff. As he said the other day, we don't like a-holes and they don't like us. And, they've been able to hit on both the talent and the character. I think is a really important balance to strike there. And then to fit the pieces together is another thing that they proved they could do. I don't know that, in fact, I know that they didn't believe that Danny Wolf necessarily was going to be as good as he was as an on-ball player this past season until the fall. And then they built, a lot of what their offense was around him. That's a lot that you have to sell right there to incoming transfers, potentially incoming freshmen, that you can take a guy's skill set or multiple players, fit them together and build the system and play differently each and every season. They got a really good staff. There's a lot of appeal for Michigan as a destination going forward. And then they prove they can develop some guys too. So the ones coming back, you should feel good about the way that they're going to improve. So they did a lot. And when you look at the season in totality, I wouldn't say this is just a good or great year for year one with Dusty May. I'd say this is a good / great year in general. I think it would be sunshine if you hang a Big Ten championship banner and make the second weekend of the tournament pretty much any year. Now, there might be a season where you're loaded, you brought a bunch of guys back, you get a 1 or a 2 seed, and you lose maybe in the Sweet 16 and you feel disappointed that you didn't max out your potential. But, as far as a typical year, the success Michigan had with 27 wins, a championship, and a second weekend berth, I think you would feel good about in most seasons. And that says a heck of a lot, considering it was the first season under Dusty May, and now they can go forward and, build off of that. It's not the same. Like, that term isn't the same as it would have been 10 years ago. But you still can use some of it as momentum and, selling points, to guys in the portal and things like that.
Yeah, I think that just the winning in general sells itself. Especially assuming that Michigan is a factor in terms of NIL in a lot of these recruitments, and we think they will be. But you got to remember too. I mean, it's similar to the conversations we've had with football recently, where your NIL might be better, but that just doesn't mean that you're going like a kid on hopped up on sugar at Toys R Us and going, I want that. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to dress that. I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get that guy. You want to put together the best team you possibly can. And they, as far as I'm concerned, now there are things you can't control. Who would have thought that Roddy Gale wouldn't have hit a 3 for almost 3 months? Who would have thought that Sam Walters got injured? Who would have thought that, Reuben Jones maybe wouldn't bring as much offensively that you thought he would? But as far as I'm concerned, in terms of filling out this year's roster, I think they darn near batted 1,000 on it. And it shows that there's a conviction about who they get on campus, who they choose is for them, who fits their style, who fits the system. So, we're seeing, I feel like every couple days you hear about 4 or 5 more names that they've been linked to, in the portal. And the portal's open until April 22nd, I think it is. But, they know what they want and they know what they're looking for. And, they're going to be at the top of a lot of these portal rankings in the aggregate, because they could have anything from 4 to maybe as many as 8 spots to fill from that regard. But you walk out of it knowing that, at least feeling a little more at peace, that these pieces are going to fit together. Because really, they took kind of an unorthodox roster last year or this past year. It's weird to talk about them in the past sense now, but who would have thought the 2 bigs thing would work as well as it did? Who would have thought that, some of these up transfers would have had the impact that they did. So I walk out of this year pretty confident that whatever chemical mixture, that whatever shape this takes moving forward, they're going to have a plan for it. And, I think what you saw just in general over the weekend was, playing against a team like Auburn, that's what they want to be and what they want to look like in terms of a team that does everything well. They defend well. They shoot the three well. Just depth up and down the roster. And they're not there yet. And they still had a pretty an excellent season by every stretch of the imagination. So that's what I take out of this.
Yep, and that's going to be an expensive roster going forward. So I don't think when you look at the pieces, who wouldn't want the players that Auburn has, right? And I don't think they were particularly well coached in the first three quarters of that Michigan game and part of the Michigan State game, frankly. I don't think they're as good X's and O's as Michigan or Michigan State with Bruce Pearl. He's accomplished some things, obviously. A lot of it's talent acquisition, as I've said. But to be up by 9 with 12 minutes to go, guys, and then it took a very favorable whistle to really change that game as quickly as it did, was a testament to what Michigan accomplished, right? And Auburn turned it over 15 times, I think. How do they turn it over 10 times in the first half or something like that, which is completely out of character. But at the same time, to be able to hang with them and to have them not quite on the ropes, guys. If you're up 9 with 8 to go at the 8-minute timeout, then we're talking, right? But it disappeared quickly, and credit to Auburn for that. But I don't think you're looking at a team like that for a while until there's some oversight on NIL, right? Because you're going to see bidding wars for some of these guys that Michigan's just not going to partake in. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't have added like a high scoring wing this year, right? And they were pretty close to doing that from what we'd heard. And which would have made this team even tougher. And so but the one thing I do feel great about is that Dusty May is going to get the most out of his talent. And that, to me, speaks volumes to obviously his coaching ability. And I know that he's going to be able to put together a roster that's not going to have glaring holes like it did in the year or two prior to his arrival. So, but what a fun year, guys. Going to be interesting. We got Trey Donaldson on the screen here for people just listening. Going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Roddy Gale and Will Cheddar both said they were coming back. Dusty May did say he's going to sit down with everybody and talk to them and make sure that they are all on the same page as to what they envision their roles being. LJ Cason's probably going to be in demand. I bet people throw money at him. So you just never know, right? Out of the blue, sometimes these things come and you're looking for another piece. But I like the base as long as they get a couple of big guys and a scoring wing. Easier said than done, I know, but they're out there and you can see that they're casting a wide net.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to that point that they learn this season is what they weren't and what they needed to be, maybe to compete even better in the Big Ten. There were a lot of close games. They talked all year about physicality and how they had to kind of improve in that area throughout the season. I thought they did do that. And then, of course, you get to the NCAA tournament, and it's a completely different way of these games are officiated. I thought Vlad Golden, almost every time he went up in the Auburn game, and every time he set a screen and tried to move after that, whether it was dive into the rim or just a typical roll, is getting grabbed and everything else. It's just different. So you have to adjust. And Big Ten's had trouble with that historically throughout the years. Maybe less so now that there are more styles of play in the conference going forward. But they learned a lot about what it's like to navigate a season in the Big Ten, what the roster was lacking. Playmaking has been something that Dusty May has pointed to. They didn't have a great playmaking this season. They didn't get too many easy buckets that weren't created by either Danny Wolf or Vlad Golden themselves. And then you would see sometimes as LJ Cason progressed throughout the season, particularly in the postseason, how he would actually create some of those for the guys better than a Trey Donaldson or some of the guys who were in the starting lineup and playing huge roles throughout the season. So they realize they need that. I think on top of a wing, you need a playmaking guard or two as well. And the big men. So there are a ton of needs for this roster. You lose Reuben Jones, you lose Vlad Golden, you may lose Danny Wolf and Namari Burnett, and you could lose others. So that's the nature of where we're at in college basketball. But really good learning experience in year one for Dusty May and company. Dusty May was in the Big Ten, but that was a couple decades ago. So they understand now what it takes. And, it's going to be interesting as you kind of already see some of the guys they're in on and, that are at least interested in, listed on some of those lists. You can see what those guys bring. And, there are some common threads in terms of what Michigan needed this past season, and what they understand they need going forward.
Yeah, and just I'll read through a couple names. We do have a hot board up over on the site, which might be a good time to plug that. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for $1. That's going to get you the hot board. It's going to get you the columns, the recruiting analysis, all of that stuff. The big stuff that's coming moving forward. A couple priority target. I don't even know. Obviously Owen Freeman was a guy that they were very interested in. He's going to Creighton. A couple more guys off the board. Trayson Eaglestaff, the North Dakota guard. He's going to South Carolina. Yame Butler, a guard from Drexel, is oddly enough going to Butler. And the movement for Michigan so far, we knew about Justin Pippen's transfer. Jace Howard also transferring, which we were kind of surprised about that, only in that I have no idea how he could possibly have another season of eligibility, but obviously he didn't play much of a role this year, and good guy, good of him to ride it out, get a degree at Michigan. But, that's really the only moves we've seen to this point. So we know that they're going to meet with players, I assume, this week. Could be kind of a crazy week, as our buddy M Hoops One said in a post on the board, that, you've got a ruling a week from today on this house settlement. So that could speed some stuff up. Obviously, given that there are all but 4 teams left to play, unless you count the college basketball crown, which, no disrespect, I don't. I think it's going to be a busy week for more guys jumping in, and maybe Michigan jumping in the mix for more guys. And also, I believe Thursday through Thursday is also a dead period in terms of getting guys on campus as well. So
correct.
It's we'll see what happens in the next few days, and then what comes after that. But list of targets, there's about, I feel like, 20 guys at this point on the hot board. You can check that out over at thewolverine.com. But fellas, your thoughts on what you've seen in terms of Michigan's activity in the portal and what it feels like they're going to address.
Yeah, we talked about it, bigs and wings, right? And guards that, and there's been some question, right? Are they going after guards because they're worried about losing some? Or are they going after guards because they need depth there? And I think it's a depth thing more than anything, right? I think you obviously bring Trey Donaldson back if he wants to come back, but is he that guy that's going to get you to the next level? He had some really nice plays at the end of games. There were a lot of times this year when he disappeared, especially against better teams. So that's going to be one to watch. So they need a shooter, right? They're getting a couple good ones in Trey McKinney and in Winters Grady, a true freshman. So, but they're true freshmen, right? It would be a bonus if Winters Grady could give you some minutes in the Nick Stauskas type of way, Nick Stauskas freshman year type of way, right? Where he's standing on the wing and he spreads the floor. And if he's a knockdown shooter like that, not many were, fellas. Now, Nick didn't completely tear it up in his first year, but always knew that he had it in him. We saw 6 threes, I think, against Florida in the Elite Eight game. So that would help a little bit, but they need a bigger 2. They need a guard. They need a wing. So that's what I think they're looking at. There are a lot of good names on there. I love the fact that they are casting a wide net. It is interesting, though, how you hear that Michigan is leading for a couple guys, and all of a sudden they have a Zoom with somebody is spending a lot of money, and they aren't leading anymore, right? Owen Freeman, Michigan, initially, according to our sources in Iowa, was in really good shape with Gonzaga. Then, boom, all of a sudden they weren't. So we already talked about Magoon. So it's going to be interesting, but to me, again, I throw a ton of money at Danny Wolf and say, hey, if you want to come back, we'll make it worth your while. That's where I'd like my money to go. And but that's not going to change what they still need as well. They need a center, they need a guard, they need a wing.
Yeah, I think they're gonna operate as if Danny Wolf is going to leave, and then if he comes back, then you can't be too offended if you're someone that maybe committed or whatever. You're just going to have to figure out what your role is going to be, because they're going to take Danny Wolf back if he decides, after going through the process, which will take quite a while, that he wants to return. And also, if Winters Grady plays 30.5 minutes a game this year, that would be like Nick Stauskas did as a freshman. That would be awesome as well. Don't know that I expect it, but
I don't either, to be clear. I mean,
yeah.
and a role to get some minutes to spread the floor. I didn't mean playing 30 minutes. So,
Right.
yeah.
If he could play Zach Irvin freshman role, I think
Mhm.
that would be nice. And Trey McKinney, I could see him playing 10 minutes a game. I could see him playing 25, just depending on who you get, who comes back. Namari Burnett, potentially in that same type of position, if you will, even though there's a lot of flexibility there. And then, yeah, I mean, the guard wise, though, that some of the guys they're in on, like Elliot Cadeau from North Carolina, maybe Dedon Thomas Jr. from UNLV, you're looking at some guys that would start right away. And maybe you move Trey Donaldson over the 2 if he comes back. So I think they're looking to get the best. And every team, right, Michigan's going to get someone that someone else led for at some point too. So it's going to work both ways, I think, here in the portal. It's still pretty early. You're seeing interest in some guys that probably they're not that interested in. And maybe we're hearing less about some guys that they are interested in that just haven't put out a list yet. So that's how it happened last year. There was a mix of guys that you didn't know about, or you did, or they surfaced, one day before they commit, things like that. Sam Walters, it was reported the day after he visited Michigan that he visited Michigan. And then I think he committed, either that day or the next day. So it's about to be, portal craziness. I'm here for it. Like we said earlier, I wish we still had another week to cover this team. It's too bad we don't get to watch this team anymore or talk to guys like Reuben Jones, who said that he wishes he could come back, and that says everything about what they did in year one, what a special group that was. And Reuben Jones is one of the guys that made it a special group, but it's too bad, but the chaos begins and we sleep in May, as John Rothstein says.
That's right. And something else to remember too. I mean, this is not a shot at anyone that does rank. I don't even know how you begin to rank guys in the transfer portal, especially when there's so many of them. But I think last year, John Tonje, who arguably was the best player in the Big Ten, was like number 296 or something in the portal.
It's fascinating to go back and look at the rankings. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's tough work too. But a lot of good basketball players out there. You trust the staff. I know they've been working on a much different timeline than you just getting a job and hitting the ground running. Obviously, they had to prepare for games last week as the portal opened, but that's the reality that everyone is dealing with right now. You don't think that Duke and Auburn and Houston and Florida, I'm sure they would love to take a deeper look at guys right now, but they're also still playing too. So that's the new normal, and the timeline and all that. That's something that college basketball, I think, is still going to need to work out. Outside of roster and outlook, what's another big question or something that's on your guys' mind in terms of what comes next for Michigan under Dusty May? No, we've discussed a lot.
Fundamentals and toughness and rebounding. I mean, fundamentals for sure. And I said this in a column that, you can lean on the GOAT, John Beilein, right? I'd get him in there and say, hey, give me some drills to work on with these guys to make us better, because how many games did they give away or were closer than they should have been because of the mindless turnovers that led to pick sixes that we never used to see. And I'm not saying that this team needs to be a John Beilein type team. They're going to be more turnovers because of the tempo they play with. But guys, some of the ones that we saw were just unbelievable at times this year. So that's got to improve. And I think he understands that too. So I would call John and I'd say, hey, what can I do to make things better? He said he talked to 25 coaches who were having some teams who were having issues with turnovers. They got better as the year went on. And especially 3 of the last 5 games before Auburn, I think they had less than 10, if I'm not mistaken, which was pretty impressive. So, but that's an area where they need to improve. And other than that, man, just when it comes to culture, I look at the big things when it comes to building a team, right? The culture, the chemistry, knowing how to put a roster together. I have no doubt that Dusty May is the right guy for that. I said it when he was hired. And I'll say this again. There were 3 guys in history that I knew were going to be great hires for Michigan when they were hired. It was John Beilein, Jim Harbaugh, and Dusty May. So I've no doubt that they're in great shape. So I'm just excited to see who they get now. That's what's this team going to look like? Who are these guys? How are they going to mesh? And I'm with you, Clay. It's sad it's over. I wish we were watching them for another weekend. I would like to see you guys and showing you around San Antonio. They have a river walk down there. I'm not sure if you've heard. So, but it's
I've
fun.
heard there's just margaritas everywhere there.
There are margaritas everywhere, and it's a lot of fun. But good luck to it'll be fun watching those teams in it too. I think it'll be a great Final Four.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo a lot of that in terms of like the turnovers or whatever. But when you look at the way when Dusty May finally got that thing built at Florida Atlantic, the turnovers were really low. So this was uncharacteristic. He understands, he knows how to coach a team to not turn the ball over. Part of it was roster. They didn't just play faster; they also played really big. So that's a part of it. When you have a 7-footer as one of your creators, it's kind of the give and take, right? Well, we don't have great playmaking except for our 7-footer, but the 7-footer in that role is probably going to turn it over a decent amount. So it'll look different, right? There'll be a different weakness. There'll be a different strength next season. I'm excited. A lot of it does have to do with the roster of just, okay, what do we have now? What are we going to build around? So that'll be interesting. And we'll kind of get some updates. Sounds like we'll have a press conference with Coach May as like a closure type of thing here. Maybe in the coming weeks. And then, last year they did one after they built the roster, and they did one after summer workouts, and they did one right before fall practices started. So we're going to kind of get some insight throughout the way. I love covering this program under Dusty May, just the transparency and not to their detriment at all, right? Actually to their it's a positive for them. The fans are engaged. They understand what the coaches are looking for. They understand where the players are in their development, all that sort of stuff. So we will be able to follow it really closely with this team. But and I meant to mention this after you mentioned Jace Howard. He told me today that he is seeking an extra year of eligibility due to a medical hardship waiver. Only played in 5 games this year. Last game he played in was December 29th against Western Kentucky. And he said the plan since January has been for him to get a medical. So good luck to him wherever he goes. Well, a heck of a run. I mean, he was on a team that he was teammates with a bunch of guys that have been in the NBA for a few years here. He made multiple NCAA tournament runs. He also had an 8-win year. He's seen it all. He's been coached by his dad. He's been coached by somebody else. Crazy 5 years for Jace Howard at Michigan.
Big Ten championship ring, Big Ten tournament championship.
Yes.
Couple Sweet 16s and Elite 8. That's a pretty damn good career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so much for the narrative that, damn it, Dusty, why didn't you play him on senior day, you piece of crap?
Right.
Where did that narrative come from?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think my closing thoughts on this group in terms of what I want to see moving forward, and maybe it's a no duh analysis, but got to get a little more athletic, got to get more physical, just got to knock down shots. I mean, I think a lot of the turnover issues were one thing, but when they weren't shooting the ball well, I think that's when you saw those kind of leads disappear and teams get back in games. So, just got to get deeper, tougher, all those types of things. And I think they will. I think that now that they have a taste of this league, and I'll just say this in general, just watching the rest of the Big Ten perform in this event the way that it has, over the last 25 years, the officiating in this league is getting worse, and it's not doing these teams any favors. I think Dusty and his staff, the biggest challenge is building a roster, building a team that's kind of like officiating proof, if that's even possible, because it's just different. I mean, there was stuff called, not called in that game against Auburn that we just hadn't seen all year, because it's different speed, different intensity. So we'll see. That's what everyone's trying to work on across the country. But Big Ten still can't find a way to snap that drought. Maybe Michigan will be the team that does it the next couple of years. But feel pretty good about where things are at. Overjoyed about where things are at, and I think that's a good way to probably put a bow on basketball until we start turning the page to next year's team. We're going to find out who's on it soon enough. All that work is underway. We are going to end our show today with questions, but before we do that, I want to talk to you guys about our friends over at Big Game Football Factory. Something brand new is taking flight at the Big House through the 2025 season. We've talked about it before. The 2025 official Michigan Jordan Fly Elite Football just dropped for the first time ever. Jordan Brand's signature innovation, performance, and swagger are hitting the turf in the Big House. This is the official game ball of the Wolverines, and you will see it in action all season long. As Michigan builds on its championship legacy, the ball is designed for precision, control, and game-changing performance. Here's what makes it special. We've talked about the Maze, Jumpman, and Block M logos. The QB room actually had a hand in designing it with their input, their guidance. It's got pebbled lace, a visible colored maze lace reinforcement flap, an overlay stripe, and of course, it is handcrafted by our friends in the USA at Big Game Football Factory. Every ball that you get is going to come with a certificate of authenticity as well. So it's not just a football, guys. It is a piece of Michigan history. It's perfect for the true fans, whether you want to display it, give it as a gift, hold on to it for tailgate season. You're tossing around Pioneer or the golf course, wherever you guys hang out on game day. You're going to want to get yours today. So be among the first to own it. Head on over to biggameusa.com/Wolverines. That's biggameusa.com/Wolverines. Shame on me for closing out of the questions tab. I need a second to stall and get to that. But a couple of this week, a couple football questions for the people that wanted to talk football on the show. We'll start this one from Go Blue 0007, who wants to know, how is Brady Norton progressing on the offensive line? Sounds like he could push for a starting spot. And of course, though, we talked to Grant Newsome today. Clayton, what do you have to say about Brady Norton?
Well, he had to say that he could push for a starting spot, could be in the top 5 this season. Said he could play tackle or guard, and said that strength-wise, he hasn't had the issues transitioning from the FCS to this conference the way that maybe you would expect from somebody that young that played at Cal Poly FCS level. And he said that they're very pleased with where he's at weight-wise. I know he was listed last year at Cal Poly at 275. He told our EJ Holland in December that he was closer to 295. Grant Newsome didn't give a weight, but said that they feel like he could play in this conference at the weight that he's at, and he's done a really good job strength-wise. So all positives, of course, that's what they're going to say, but it brings versatility, and that's important because this is not a very deep defense or deep offensive line at all. So the fact that he could be in the mix at multiple spots, I think, helps them.
And one source did tell us early on that they were pleasantly surprised with how he played at tackle. So that's going to take a while to figure out, guys, especially if they go to the portal for another lineman too, which I think they should. That's just it's tough, guys, to land a lineman from the portal now. The prices continue to go up, but if he could play some tackle for them and compete there, I think that would certainly help them.
Yeah, Newsome, of course, also said that if there was a game tomorrow, they feel like they have a starting 5 they'd be comfortable with. But
they said that about the quarterbacks last year.
That's spring. Yeah, I mean, that's spring ball speak. I need to believe it when I see it. I don't want to say that we were snowed last year by some of the stuff we heard, but wasn't good enough. And you lost some of your best players up there. So, hey, if he can come in and make an impact, I think that's a huge, huge positive. And even if it's just at a replacement level, because I don't think they even got that at times on their offensive line. This one's from Hoops Coach N3D, who says, are there any recent status updates on Sam Walters? And also, besides Justin Pippen and Jace Howard, any other potential players who may go into the portal?
You never know, right? And Dusty said he's going to have his sit downs. And I look at guys like Trey Donaldson and LJ Kaysen, and I think, man, people might try to poach them. You just never know. They seem to love it here. But again, money talks. So Sam Walters had a real problem with his back this year. And everybody said, well, you said the same thing about Pippen being in protocol or so on and so forth. Justin Pippen was in protocol, number one, before he decided to leave. Sam Walters does have a significant back injury. So, and speaking to people close to the program, it was so bad that it was tough for him. And Clay even said he saw a couple times where he was just struggling to stand up on the sidelines. So, and you could see it. So, hopefully he gets it back to where he needs to be. They could use him next year, right? And that would be another big guy who was getting more physical, who was really learning Big Ten ball before he finally got hurt. So, but I'm not going to predict whether he's going to be here. Trey Donaldson, LJ Case, and you hope, and that they don't have that many guys to go out and get. But in this day and age, you just never know.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, like, it's the same thing when the portal opened for football in December. Like, I would have got a notification that anyone entered, besides maybe a couple guys, I wouldn't have been surprised. I mean, and that has changed. 3-4 years ago, there were some that you were surprised by, and there were some, timing wise, you were surprised by. Now, nothing really surprises you. You have to be prepared for everything. And even Trey Donaldson, maybe someone will try to poach him, or maybe with Michigan recruiting some guards in the transfer portal, he'll want to look around himself as well, because I don't think they're just going to be content with any position on this team. You would have been content at center had Vlad Golden had another year of eligibility. That would have been about it. Him and Danny Wolf at the 4 spot. If he comes back, then okay, you're content there, but you still need another big or two. But beyond that, I think they're looking to just continue to get really good players that are culture fits, and that goes for every spot on the floor. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked by any. Actually, coincidentally, Jace Howard was a surprising one. When you get that come across your phone, it's like, wait, how? Like, he's out of eligibility. I shook his hand the other night. I said, heck of a run in college basketball. And here he is continuing that run in college basketball. So anything can happen. Guys get eligibility, they find it in their back pocket, and next thing you know, they're playing somewhere else. And I heard Hunter Dickinson may try to sue the NCAA, get another year. So
you didn't hear that. He's lying.
He's joking about it, but
yes.
It's always 2 truths and a lie with our friend Clayton Safey. You never know. You never
no,
know.
I mean, I heard
he
joked. He's been joking about that. That is a fact.
Yeah. There's some truth in every joke, they say.
Well, he's on that Perry Ellis plan, which they might need to rename it the Hunter Dickinson plan at this point.
Right.
Let's see here.
Great kid, great player.
We'll take this one from Jungle Bar, who I think he's looking to get a little free advertising in here, but that's okay. He says, thoughts on Ann Arbor's newest food craze, Bo's Bagels.
I'm going to make it a point to get there. Iggy's Eggies, I think, is another one. E. Boyer is, and Clay is eating there. He's liked it. So
we got the breakfast wars with our posters on the fort.
Yeah, and I think there's room for both. So can't wait to try both of them, fellas. And of course, Jungle Bar is involved with Regents Field, which has been a great friend to us as well. We love them, and Joe's Pizza. So I'm going to hit all these places here in the next couple of months while we're putting together our football preview, and we'll get back to you. But glad that he plugged it.
Anthony, who's the manager at Regents Field that we talked to when we did the show there? I'm
Jackie.
Okay. Yeah, she said that like these bagels are on another level. Everyone's had a bagel. I don't think I've ever had a bagel in New York, even though I've been there a few times. And apparently these are going to be very similar to what those are. A lot of New York imports here to Ann Arbor. So I'm sure they'll be excited about it. I'm pumped to try it hopefully here soon. But yeah, Joe's Pizza, best pizza in Ann Arbor too.
You had me at New York Implants. So yeah. Disappointed.
Right. But there are a lot of imports here. A lot of
I make a motion
New York
at some
influence
point.
here in Great Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Next topic before we get in trouble.
I'm just going to put forth a motion now. We should put together some kind of guide to Ann Arbor for our subscribers, handpicked by us.
Yep.
In each category. I think that could be pretty fun.
Yeah,
Let's take, we've got 2 more here. This is from Boogeyman, who says, if Bryce Underwood solidifies himself as QB1 this spring, does Mikey Keene stick around or look to go elsewhere? And I'll just start with that. I think that Mikey Keene, his decision to come to Michigan went beyond, he knew that he was coming into a room with Bryce Underwood. There's talk that he wants to get in coaching. He wants to kind of expand his network. So I don't think whatever happens with Mikey or with Bryce one way or another, I think he's with this program this fall. I don't think there's any question about that.
This is a Jack Tuttle type situation, right? And if you play, that's great. And I think he was planning on competing. I think he is planning on competing. He is banged up right now, but he's here, like you said, for the experience of, getting his feet wet in coaching. Now we know that Jack Tuttle's got a job on staff, and I think Mikey Keene, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a coach next year next to Chip Lindsey as well. So he's not going anywhere. He's not unhappy. He's banged up. So that's all we'll say about that.
Yeah, and our EJ Holland wrote today that it's possible Michigan explores another quarterback in the transfer portal this spring, although options will be very limited. We saw that last year. Sharon Moore got slammed for not getting one, but who were the good quarterbacks that were available in the spring? They were put in a tough spot there. So it would be that again. You don't have much depth. Davis Warren won't be really healthy till likely, sometime into the season. Even then, that would be with everything going according to plan, which doesn't always happen. You can see some recent knee injuries for examples that they don't always go according to plan. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that you have pretty much two quarterbacks competing right now in practice, getting all the reps. Two young guys, Jaden Davis, the sophomore redshirt freshman who took one snap last year, and then Bryce Underwood, an early enrollee freshman who also went through some bowl practices. Those two getting a lot of experience. And I will say you hear a hell of a lot of usually guys are somewhat uncomfortable or just don't want to talk about freshmen, especially veterans, but each and every person we talk to this spring just keeps bringing up how good Bryce Underwood is. And that bodes well, but depth is a concern.
Yeah, I think for as deep as you'd like to be, the fact that it is spring ball, and not that spring ball is low stakes, but the fact that you're kind of now force feeding a sophomore and a true freshman all of the reps, I think you're going to get the evaluation that you wanted out of both of these guys by the time that spring ball is done. So that's a blessing in disguise from that. Obviously, we hope for good health for everyone and a deeper quarterback room when the regular season comes around. But yeah, a lot of hype for that and kind of unprompted hype sometimes as well. So this is our last one from one of my favorite monikers on the board. This is from 99TT, player TT 99. He says, with prices in the basketball portal shooting up so high so suddenly, how does Dusty adapt or quickly generate new revenue to elevate the roster beyond last year's level?
One thing, he went out last year and made his own luck. Remember when Juwan Howard said, good luck to him, he's going to need it. He went out, he met boosters. He said, this is what we're going to need to compete. And when he went and face-to-face saw these people, they said, sure, here you go. So I think he's going to let people know that this is what the going rate is for some of these people, and this is what we need to do. And that's step one. Step two is you cast a very wide net, like John Beeline used to do. Some of John Beeline's plan B and plan C guys were better than their plan A guys, it turned out. Look at Tim Hardaway Jr., right? He was, there were other guys that were higher on their list, and they didn't get him. They get Tim Hardaway Jr. He turned out okay. So Trey Burke kind of came out of nowhere. Xavier Simpson, another one, exactly.
Right.
So, yep, yeah. So that's what I love about him, and I have no doubt, right, that he's going to go out and try to secure more money if he needs it, and I think he will, because again, prices are rising. But B, I trust their talent evaluation and what they think can work, and we've seen that. This is not a flawless roster that they put together, but guess what? They won 27 games and a banner with it, despite its deficiencies. So feel really good about where he is.
Yeah,
and you feel pretty. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, and he said the other night that NIL has grown even since then with the program. So I think that they're in a good spot. Like it's not just other teams that are having, more money in the bank right now. Michigan does too, and they're going to be able to pay some guys. Revenue sharing's coming too. Anthony and I ran into a former Michigan football player who's potentially going to be drafted next month. And I said, you got any eligibility left? He said, no, I wish though. Revenue sharing, man. And so it's not a small deal that's coming. Now, the complicated part of all this is that all these schools are front loading the NIL contracts. So the money comes in before July 1, because starting July 1, things could change in terms of how how collectives are going to be able to pay out NIL money after July 1, as long as the April 7 House versus NCAA settlement goes through. You're going to have to, pretty much have legit marketing deals instead of just these slush fund collectives paying players, basically pay to play. There'll still be some of that where you can get above the cap, and I think Michigan will figure out a way to do it, just like the other teams. But so yeah, it's very complicated, and we got a court hearing in a week too that will provide a little bit more clarity, but also in other ways a lot of uncertainty.
Well, to bring it all full circle, I think you can rest your head easy knowing that whatever Dusty May was working in a broom closet, 2 years ago, maxing out the Florida Atlantic program. maxed out. He took the team this year as far as I think this version of that team could possibly go. They're going to make work whatever they can make work, and they're not exactly hurting for money either. So it's a fun time. It's a good time to be following the Michigan Wolverines. Of course, we're here every step of the way, discussing it here on Monday and Thursdays with the three of us. So that's going to do it for us today. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you listen to the audio versions, remember to use that promo code UM1. Gets you that 2 months of access to our site for $1. That's only for people that watch or listen to the show. So it's exclusive just for you, taking advantage of that. All right. For Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you again later this week.